Welcome to another episode of the True You podcast. My name is Bill Tierney. I am a compassionate results coach, and that means that I help people get results with a compassionate approach assisted by the internal family systems model, certified IFS practitioner. And I'm with my co-host, Dr. Martin Kettlehead, who is an author and an executive coach and a good friend.
I would say, if you're going to say compassionate, I'm going to say relational
coach.
Right. Relational leadership coach, which is, it's an important distinction. Like compassionate is around results. Relational is a different way of doing leadership than most of what I see out there.
I called you an executive coach. Your clients are not limited to executives. You work with anybody who sees themselves as a leader or wants to be, and you help them recognize the power of relationship in leadership.
Correct.
Yeah,
that's
great.
Right.
Thanks for that distinction. That's helpful. And anybody that's been listening to the podcast probably knows all that already. We just put some words to it. Just by the way that you respond to everything. Well, as usual, before we hit record, we didn't already have a topic in the coffer. Sometimes we do, but most of the time we don't. And one of the things that happens on Fridays, and it's unusual that we're recording on a Friday. Typically we record on a Wednesday, and I'm coming out of my women's recovery group and one or two individual sessions. So I'm kind of inspired by what has happened in those sessions.
I didn't know you were recovering from being a woman.
I'm recovering from being anything but who I actually am.
You see in the news today, I promise not to take us too far afield, but that Emmanuel Macron, the
French president,
and his wife are suing some podcaster on the East Coast of the United States of America for defaming. I think her name, Giselle, or I forget the wife's name.
Yeah.
This podcaster, for some reason, is claiming that she's really a man.
And so they're getting sued.
Yeah. Podcaster. Yeah. Anyway, so
in this world where slander seems to be okay.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And
transgender not to be okay. Like, that's slanderous. Like, that's one of the things that occurred to me. Like, why sue? So what? It's not. Right, yeah. It's not like an insult.
Yeah, maybe to them it is defamatory. Yeah. Okay.
Clearly it is. Okay.
So what we began to talk about just before we hit record and before we had a whole session discussed without recording it was the mastermind group that we came out of this morning that meets every Friday. We meet with other coaches. And one portion of our meeting each week is to offer support to any of the coaches that want to be supported in a challenge. In fact, one of the things that we do is we say, if I had a challenge, what would it be? And that's what we did this morning. And the person that brought up the challenge, we had a very lively round of support for him. And I love that. I love it. The challenge that I would have brought had I been the one getting support was presence. And the challenge that you would have brought was getting focused on writing again. What's it take to get back to writing again?
Yes.
Because you just came back from, what was it, a week or 10 days?
It was about 6 days.
6 days. Yeah. And then since you've gotten back, you're not back into the momentum was broken, and you're not back into the momentum and rhythm of that.
Right. It takes something to get into that space. And I think that's probably what we're going to find in, with all of these examples that we're going to talk about, your presence. Say when it is that's a challenge, because it's not always a challenge. When is it a
challenge? Present? No.
Yeah.
Well, what I've noticed is that it's very challenging to be present when I'm doing something that I'm not choosing. And that seems like a crazy thing to say. How would you ever do anything that you don't choose? But in fact, the choice is not an honest It's not an honest choice. For example, my wife loves to garden, and she's a volunteer at the local community farm. And she's very proud of the work that she's done there and just takes great joy in it, as you do. You showed us your pictures of the fruits of your labor this morning from your garden. And that's the way Kathy is too. She's just got such a love for flowers and vegetables and studying and growing dahlias. And I really enjoy looking at what she has done. I really do.
Mhm.
Often I'll just I'll walk outside for some reason, maybe to walk to the mailbox, and I'll walk by the flowers and the plants that she's been arranging and putting out in our yard, in our gardens, and just have to stop and look. And sometimes I'll even take a picture and send it to her and say, "Thank you. This is beautiful." And so I have appreciation for what she's doing. And last night, after we had gone to listen to a little bit of music in a park, she said, "Let's stop by the farm. Let's see how things are doing." And I said, "Great, let's go do that." Because I hadn't seen her garden plot for a while. And I noticed while we were there looking at the cantaloupes and the watermelon and the okra and all the tomatoes and all the stuff that she's growing, I had an impatient bark that was saying, "Okay, we done yet? Gosh, I hope she doesn't want to go look at the flowers now, because I'm tired. I want to go home, maybe watch a little TV, just do something." It's not like I had something really terribly important to do, but a part of me had a preference for doing something different than what I was doing. And that pulled me away from being able to just be present and fully in the moment.
And I would say that's very much, I hate to admit it, but because the implications we're going to talk about scare me a little bit about myself, but that, rather than actually choosing writing, I'm choosing to let the festivities of summer distract me. But so I'm like at a picnic with people thinking, gosh, I can't wait to get home and work on my writing. So it's like you in the garden.
Yes. And so the choice to stay at the party for you, the choice to stay at the garden for me, was a disempowered choice, because there was a voice inside expressing a concern and a preference for doing something different that diminished my capacity for actually being present in that moment. And so I would characterize that as a disempowered choice, and maybe even an unconscious choice.
I'm going to go way out on a limb here and suggest that most people this moment are in the midst of a disempowered choice.
In this moment, most people.
I would say so.
If you're listening to this episode, turn us off, because you'd rather be doing something else.
Right? Right. Yeah. It's kind of like that. I mean, think about it. Like, there's always somewhere else.
Yeah.
That we're trying, whether it's metaphorical somewhere else, like just some better life than the one I got.
Yeah.
Right. Or something specific, like, well, yeah, I felt like I should listen to this episode, but I really would like to go take a nap, or, I really want to do this other thing, but, my son is asking me for some attention, and I feel like I got to give it to him, but it's not fully there because I really need to do. We're doing this, like layers of this all the time.
Right. And the answer, of course, the optimum place to be for full presence would be self-leadership. This is powerfully what we're choosing right now. And so interesting. I think I've mentioned this in an episode before, that even before I learned about IFS and that I had parts, I often thought, and I could hear my thoughts as we don't want this. And then every once in a while I'd hear that and wonder, am I crazy? Is there something wrong with me? Why am I thinking in terms of we? Who's this we?
I do that too. That's so interesting. I do that too.
It's just I'm eavesdropping in on my parts, and I'm thinking it's my thoughts.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Now it makes sense. I know that I'm not crazy. I know that the 8 billion people that are on the planet having a similar experience aren't crazy. But by having a similar experience, I don't know how many people can relate to hearing thoughts that are thinking in terms of we. But what I'm realizing now is that every thought, every emotion, every body sensation, every impulse, every choice, every behavior is influenced by my parts. The question about that is, are the parts that are influencing me in those ways reacting to the past through reacting to the present through a lens that's blurred by the past? Or are they reacting through a clear lens that reflects accurately current reality?
Mhm.
If the part that's influencing me the most in the present moment is looking at current reality, then I have the opportunity to choose powerfully.
Mhm.
But it is a conscious, intentional choice most of the time, unless I just happen to be doing what I love to do and I'm totally in the flow with.
I mean, I find myself making that choice quite often. Like at this picnic, so and so walks up to me and wants to talk, and so I'm at choice. Do I let myself be in this conversation or not? Or am I going to be split minded, like a stand here, but really be, in Hawaii or something? I find we're constantly a choice like this. And that when you said just now, as opposed to being self-led, the image I got of being self-led it's like sort of like being the universe watching itself. There's not it- it's not there's nowhere to go when you're self-led. It's
Mhm.
it's just a matter of choosing where you put your attention.
That's right. And if there's an argument inside about where to put that attention, that's where the suffering occurs. That's that's what causes the suffering. And the solution to that suffering is let's go somewhere else and do something else other than what we're doing right now. That's the solution of at least one of my parts in that moment that robs me of my ability to be present.
Yeah, right.
And
And I noticed, like, to use that real example from 3 days ago when I was at this picnic and this guy walked up and wanted to talk. I struggled with it for a moment. Um, I have an aversion to him because of the way he behaves. And I had to, like, am I going to stand here? Am I going to be in this conversation or not? And then I found myself actually listening, and he said something funny and I laughed, and it felt great. Like, okay, I'm here with him laughing at his joke. In that
Mhm.
moment I recognized, okay, I've chosen. I'm laughing at his joke. Really, I was. And so uh, this is a constant, even like when you're taking a walk, what are you paying attention to? Right? Why are you on the walk? What's your purpose? What did you want to accomplish? Is that what your attention's on? Or is it on how uncomfortable you are? You can't wait to get home. Or, complaining about the way people are driving or the weather instead of just being in the walk, on the walk.
Right. Yeah. Each of these examples could be looked at as opportunities, examples of opportunities to just notice what's happening inside, which, by the way, is something I'm training myself to do more and more and more and more, is that when I'm suffering, it's an opportunity to get curious about my suffering, to be and not just to indulge in the suffering,
Right.
but to understand it
Right.
and to understand the mechanisms within me that respond to my suffering so that I don't have to do it anymore.
Mhm.
Whole life, just lifetimes are built around it, built around the management of suffering,
Yeah.
which if that is the primary goal of a human being, how is it possible to be present? Because in the present moment are where the triggers show up that activate the suffering.
Well, there are a couple of things that I think worth discussing here. One is, I think a lot of people don't think they have a choice. We said it's a matter of choosing in that moment, wait to align with what want, or where you want to have your attention, rather than creating suffering by bifurcating your, being here but wanting that. But I think most people don't realize they have that choice. They think, shoot, I've got to, I can't get out of this. I've just got to suffer.
Right. Well, I would argue on the side of that they don't have a choice unless they put themselves in a position to have one.
Mm-hmm. Well, what do you call that ability to put yourself in a different position?
I don't know that I have a term for that. I can tell you about the process for getting there.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a process. It's kind of a journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it can be quite a process. It can be arduous at first. It can be difficult and challenging if at first what's happening is so dramatically different than what normally happens. So
I think a lot of things drive this not recognizing that ability to, create a choice for yourself. Like I have some clients, for example, it's just ingrained in them that life is supposed to be hard. If you're not experiencing hardship, you're avoiding, you're fooling yourself, you're cheating. Like that's what they got in their heads from their childhood.
you're not trying hard enough.
That's right. You must not be trying hard enough.
If you're not struggling, you must not be trying hard enough.
That's right. I mean, I have a youngish client right now in the financial service industry, and it's, like he apparently thinks that it's supposed to be that way, because I've given him options. He's experienced, right, momentary breakthroughs. Like, oh, it didn't have to be so hard. But then he, it's like he keeps piling it on, like that's the way you're supposed to do life.
Yeah. You're reminding me, and we're digressing here. So I'm hoping we can come back to the question of what do you call that?
Mm-hmm.
Putting yourself in the position of being able to make choice.
Yeah.
But just listening to what you just now said, I'm relating to your young client.
Mm-hmm.
In the grocery business, I was taught exactly how to be in the grocery business and what it is that I needed to do, what my job was, and how to do each one of those jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And I was under the impression that I was being watched and evaluated according to how well I took the actions and the steps that I was told to take in order to accomplish the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Get the truck unloaded, get it out onto the shelves, order the next truck. 8 hours, boom, I'm done. It occurred to me one day when I was running out of time and it didn't look like I was going to get everything done, that I could take some shortcuts. But there was a voice inside that was saying, can't take shortcuts. You have to do it the way you were shown.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're going to have to take shortcuts today because otherwise it's just not going to get done. So that second voice won over. Let's go ahead and take those shortcuts.
Mm-hmm.
And it really worked well. And I stepped back and I saw that the shortcut produced the same result without negative consequences as the long way around that I'd been taught. And I realized that I was able to figure out different ways to accomplish exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
I had to break my own rules though.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think like this guy that I'm talking about, that sounds similar. Like, I show him, for example, this is just about your attention in a meeting, right? Or, planning your day, so that you get those things that are most important to you done. And he's like, oh, that's great. And he uses it one day. And then it seems like he'll come back and say something along those like, but there's still so much to do, which, okay, that felt great to have that relief, of combining things or doing them in a new way, or practicing mindfulness exercise while I'm doing my work so that I'm not bogged down by the thinking, and he'll acknowledge like that was really good. But you see, there's still so much to do. Like, I can't do that all the time.
Yep. Yeah.
That he has the ability to put himself in a choosing place.
Let me give you a scenario of a coaching session with a client that really illustrates this, what we're talking about here. And let me name what I think we're talking about. We're naming an internal belief that runs someone's life. If you're not trying hard enough, if you're not struggling, you're not trying hard enough. Under that would be maybe a belief of the values in the work that I do and how much of it I do, not in the outcome that I produce. Maybe something like that.
There's a lot that gets left out of most traditional leadership coaching. True leadership isn't just about you. It's about your relationships to people, to issues, and to objective reality. Schedule a complimentary discovery session to get at all of it. Go to listeningisthekey.com, click on the pop-up. Would be the
another value, another rule, another belief. I think they all fit into the same category. In fact, I would say fears fall into there too. I'm afraid that if this happens, then that's going to happen. That's a belief.
Mm-hmm.
You could just as easily say, I believe that if this happens, that's going to happen.
Right.
And then that elicits an emotion that we call fear. So if we can challenge those beliefs, then our lives can actually transform. Because and even long before I discovered IFS, I learned and then taught my clients that the outcomes that I accomplish are a direct result, with a few steps in between, but still a direct result from what it is that I believe. Given what I believe, I think my thoughts. I'm not going to think thoughts that argue with my beliefs. Given my thoughts, I feel how I feel. Because I think this thought, I have an emotional reaction to it. Given how I feel, I do what I do, so as to not feel that anymore or to feel more of it. Given what I do, I get the results and the outcome that I get. If the beliefs can change, my thoughts will change, my emotions will change, what I do will change, and my results will change.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now IFS comes in. And what I've learned is that same formula, let's call it that, is still true. But now I understand more of why it's true. It's because those parts of me that got frozen in the past based on unresolved, painful, scary, hurtful situations that overwhelmed us, were more than we knew how to digest, that we didn't have the support to get all the way through and process completely. They got stuck in us. And the parts of us that are holding that energy and they have beliefs that keep that energy, that hurt, that pain, that fear locked inside.
Right.
The process of IFS helps us very systematically to go through, build trust-based relationships with the protectors of that energy and the part that's holding that energy,
mm-hmm.
so that we can get to it and understand what it is that it believes and what it is that it experienced, and then help it, if and when it's ready, if the belief itself is not valid, to see that the belief's not valid. And the moment this exiled part recognizes and realizes that what they've been holding is no longer relevant, and what they believed about it that had them holding that was never true. Mm-hmm. That moment, they're ready to let go of it. And then with the belief can change, and they no longer, from that point on, have an influence or an impact on the current moment. Mm-hmm. I love that. So a client believes I'm not lovable. If we can get to the part that actually holds that belief as a truth, and that's holding all the pain associated with the event that happened, that cemented that in them, mm-hmm. we can help them to absolutely release the belief and the pain associated with it, so that it no longer becomes activated in the present moment. So if we go all the way back to the original topic, which is choice, as long as that, what IFS calls exiled part that's holding that belief in that unresolved past is unhealed, in other words, still segregated from the rest of the system, then we don't have a choice. And that's the process that I just described to you. That's the process for putting ourselves in a position where we have a choice, where we're no longer so influenced by parts that are protecting the past that we now are able to be present, which is the only place we can choose.
There's a part of me that's saying, well, I get that. And I think that some of my beliefs got changed because I was thrown into a situation that challenged them. I mean, I didn't go in and examine the beliefs that the parts were holding and have conversations with them and update them. And before it was like, oh my gosh, I'm in the pool swimming. I guess that
And
belief I would drown. I guess that's not true
yep.
because of the experience that I was having.
Yeah.
And that I think I've been working a little bit that way with this young client, like giving him these experiences of, like doing, practice for 10 minutes while I watch, doing this task with mindfulness, like feeling it, smelling it, touching it. And he comes back and says, wow, that was a great experience. And I think, well, you've had an experience that defies your belief that work has to be, hard, but it doesn't stick. Like my realizing I could swim in the middle of the pool. Like so sometimes the experience defies the belief, and we go, wow, I guess my belief was false. But then, you want to bring it to a coach and say, I have this, to examine and get up under and heal it forevermore.
Coach or a therapist or a practitioner. Yeah. And certainly IFS is not the only way to bring about that result. You just described another way. I have an experience in reality. And reality is a great teacher if we can tolerate it. But we tend to argue with it, as Byron Katie would say. We tend to live life in an argument with reality. And in that is what actually causes our suffering. When in fact, we're blind to that cause. We think that it's life that's causing the suffering. It's our argument with reality that causes it.
Yeah, this is really good. This gets back to that thing that I mentioned 10 minutes ago. Like, people just think, well, life is this way. Like, this is, what do you think you're supposed to be able to, everything's supposed to be smooth and easy?
Yeah. Yeah, that's just lazy. That's lazy thinking.
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of people believe that.
Don't just do nothing, sit there. But no, that's not the way. Don't just do something, sit there, which is the opposite of what we're trained. Don't just sit there, do something.
Right.
Yeah. Can't sit still. And that's really still deeply, deeply ingrained in me. And I have gotten lots of updates and done a lot of healing and unburdened a lot of my exiles. And still that's in me. It's driving me. It's not incapacitating me, and it's not hurting me as much as it used to, but it's still there for sure.
So let's talk for a second about the in the moment adjustment.
Yeah.
You're sitting in the garden, you realize you're antsy, and what do you do?
Let's ask Viktor Frankl what he would do.
Okay.
What would he say? He would say, between stimulus, I'm in the garden, which is where at least one part of me doesn't want to be.
Right.
Stimulus and response is a space. So pausing rather than just reacting to the stimulus and what happens inside, that's the most critical first step that I think in the moment that one can take. And the pause doesn't mean I'll be back in 5 minutes. It means just pause long enough to notice that there's some discomfort, there's some suffering happening and it's trying to be managed by the thought that we'd be happier or better somewhere else than we are right now. So Viktor Frankl would say in between stimulus and response is a space, and in that space is I'm not quoting it exactly, but essentially is the opportunity to choose.
Got it. Respond in alignment with your authentic choosing.
Even if I choose to go with the part of me that's too uncomfortable to be here now.
Right.
We had an experience, again, back to the Mastermind group, where we have agreements about how we go about supporting each other. For my internal family nervous system, there's the capacity to be in a situation of chaos is more limited than maybe some other people in the group. And so to accommodate that, I have asked the group to agree to some things that helps my system feel more calm and stay more present. And so we have agreements about that. And yet a couple of weeks ago, those agreements weren't honored.
Okay.
And I noticed my system starting to bubble up with a higher and higher and higher level of anxiety, worry, concern, fear, discomfort, maybe a little anger. And so with 5 minutes left in the session, the therapist called this the doorknob comment, where the client says something on the way out of their session that really needed to get addressed in the session. I just heard that term for the first time today, a doorknob comment. I said, I just need to say that I experienced a lot of anxiety today. And I think it was because you guys just kept piling on the person that was getting the support for their challenge. And it really, it opposed to our agreements. And I just wish you guys would keep your things. And then a little bit of ruffle fluffle and everybody had to go. And now 2 weeks passed and we meet again today.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the other members brought it up again today and reminded me of it. I'd forgotten all about it.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that too is a really great example of how different systems operate at different levels. And I've done a ton of work over a lot of years, and I still have this internal system that automatically goes to a state of anxiety if conditions out there aren't just exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
And in that experience, that 30-minute experience 2 weeks ago, it didn't occur to me that I could choose differently by going inside and pausing and getting curious about what's happening in here.
Mm-hmm.
And that really is the key.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. I think my growing up had me develop a very high tolerance for chaos.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and when I should start pausing and responding differently much sooner, I tolerate very high degrees of chaos around me, and just just try and stay present with it. But I think that I could choose otherwise much sooner in my life.
Yeah. Would you characterize your experience as suffering, what you just described to me? Tolerance for chaos?
And so there's a degree of suffering going on in those moments for sure.
But it's your ability to tolerate that suffering is within your capacity to do so and stay present at the same time.
Yeah.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I think it's also, I don't want to get into difficult territory here, but I think it's also why I have a higher tolerance for alcohol or weed than most people I know, because I'm very practiced at being with that other place, that state, and staying present with myself drunk, where other people just go into the drunkenness.
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten very practiced at, feeling that, understanding that, seeing that, and staying present with it. And that's probably not a good thing, but it's true.
Yeah. If we stay out of evaluation and just stay with curiosity, I think that's a really interesting thing that you just said. Really interesting. And also, I'm curious about what felt dangerous about that to you.
About what?
Well, you prefaced before you described what you described about your experience with alcohol and pot. You said, I kind of want to stay out of what I interpreted as you saying, I want to stay out of this dangerous place or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess the fear was that if I admit that I have a high tolerance, that I can stay present to a greater degree than most people I know under the influence of something like that, that then people will think that I'm a drunk or I'm an addict. I'm never present. Right.
Right.
Which isn't true. But I think that so that was the fear. But I think that the meditation practice is a big factor here, because there you are practicing being with this mind that's doing these, having these beliefs, paying attention to other things, worried, guilty, all that's going on. And yet you develop in meditation the ability to be quiet while that's going on. You never stop it. It never stops. But to find a place of tranquility next to, adjacent to that going on in you. I think it's that practice that I apply when I'm at a party and people are starting to get sloppy. And I recognize, like, okay, this is happening. And now we need to start drinking water. We need to pay attention, walk, carefully, watch what you say. Like, all of that goes on.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the sort of thing that never, ever happened for me before I stopped drinking altogether. Because I didn't seem to be, I wonder, would I be able to develop that now, given the healing that I've done? I'll never find out, because I'm very committed to not drinking anymore, given what has happened in the past and how much I enjoyed being a sober man. But what you just described, I've never heard in an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting described.
That's why I hesitate to say, because I know it wouldn't go over.
Well, it may not go over. My point is that you probably then wouldn't belong in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. If that's the experience that you're having, you're not having the experience that I was having and that everybody else in that room, from what I could see, was having. Like, no choice.
Yeah.
Part of me that wanted to drank enough that I passed that point of awareness of control and self-awareness and self-regulation, and then found myself into drunkenness. And as you point out, giving into the drunkenness.
Yeah.
That creates so much problems that created so much problems for me that I found my bottom, thankfully, very early in life. I was 27 years old, and will forever be grateful for the support that I got through the fellowship of, I think in past episodes, I've been careful about naming AA. I don't consider myself to be a member of AA anymore. So I'm not sure that I'm breaking any traditions, and I don't mean any disrespect by mentioning it directly, but I just want to finish this thought to say, will forever be grateful for having my life saved by having a room to go to where people understood the way that I thought and the way that I was living.
Amen. I'm right there with you in the gratitude for that. But so it occurs to me, like, maybe some of these exercises that we did when I was first learning meditation would be useful to pass on. Like, one of them, really simple, is meditate, or it could be mindful in the midst of something, like while sitting on a park bench where there's people around playing baseball and walking their dogs, and just be quiet. Just observe. Just let your mind be taken with the observing mode, right? Rather than judging and assessing and planning and all of that stuff. That was one of our assignments, was go out and meditate on a park bench where there are going to be people, and stay in meditation. Don't get taken out of it, right?
What would you do when the judgments and the evaluations would come up?
Go back to focus on the breath or on the mantra. Just let it go. Like you let go of a hot potato, there's no trouble letting it go. Just let go of the thought and go back to your whatever your focus is on for the meditation.
And this actually happens in IFS sessions too, where
that creates that. I beg your pardon. That creates the pause.
Yes.
When you're back at choice.
Yes. I believe choice happens the moment we unblend from the parts of us that are suffering.
Yes. Right.
The evaluating parts, the parts that are protecting. Those parts that are protecting are suffering. The parts that are protecting are also trying to manage parts that are suffering even more. So the moment we can detach enough from those evaluating, protecting, and hurting parts, not detached like you don't exist, and I'm opposing you, and I'm not going to have any more of this. It's more like detaching and noticing, oh, here's an evaluation. Here's a judgment. Here's some hurting. Look at the stuff that's happening in me, rather than look at what's happening to me.
Which is to no longer identify with it. It's
yes.
Identify it as something other than me.
Yes.
Yeah. Another assignment we had, we would get checked. That this had it really advanced my ability to focus. to be present was once a month we would be checked on our meditation. The teacher we'd go in a small room and we'd sit knee to knee, and the teacher would say, okay, meditate right in front of them. And of course, I'm all about performance and doing it right and getting an A.
Right.
And so I had to detach from, disidentify with all of those kinds of thoughts in order to drop into meditation while the teacher was watching me do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the focus that it took, like that was building a meditation muscle for me that now I can, I could be in a plane and meditate, like really drop into meditation, even though I'm crowded and there's all this other stuff going on. I can do it because I built that muscle.
Nice. Yeah. Very great. What a great conversation. We need to wrap up.
Okay.
I've noticed that I have been like uber present in this conversation. Really super present. I really have enjoyed it. And I appreciate that you were willing to reschedule your day and find an hour here that we could have this conversation and make sure that we stay on the once a week release of these True You podcast episodes.
My pleasure.
Till next time. We appreciate who you are, that you would be listening to this podcast, and want to acknowledge all those parts of you that yearn for the experience of the true you.
If you like this episode, click like, share it with others, and be sure to subscribe. Listen again next week for the newest episode.
Check show notes for a transcript and a link to resources, including a link to let us know if you'd like to be a guest on our podcast.
Thank you for listening and going on this journey with us back to the true you.